how can I, on my end, increase the trust around me is that I want to begin to get really good at noticing the mood that I'm in and how that's coloring my world.
Welcome to Season 3 of Leadership Impact, the podcast for modern executives who are reinventing leadership within their organizations, with your host, executive leadership coach and CEO of the Granger Network, Kari Granger, and me, Paul Adams, CEO of Sound Financial Group. This season focuses on trust. This is episode 44, Signs and Symptoms You Are Not Oriented to Bring Trust.
Welcome back to Leadership Impact. In this season on trust, today we're going to look at moods and how moods invariably shape everything that we see and take in, the way we interact. Moods are crucial if we're going to expand our capacity to trust. So, Paul, what mood are you in today?
I would say relaxed ambition today. I knew that we were recording, so a good chunk of my day is already set forth for me, and your team does an amazing job preparing me these for me. So I just kind of have to show up and make sure all my equipment's ready. And then I have half a day of meetings after we're done recording this morning.
Man, a relaxed ambition. So, Paul, if you think about moods as the background tone of our existence, that we're living in moods, that in a sense, they even predispose us to the actions we take. They color the way we see people. It's the way we tune into the world. What does relax and ambition do for you today?
Well, I'll give one kind of easy example is as I, in preparing, kind of knowing what my day was going to look like was, I'll get through and make sure my emails are clear so that my head is clear for the time recording Leadership Impact, one of the most productive podcasts on leadership in the country, or so I've been told. And then also just looking at my calendar later in the day of like, okay, what else is coming up? Are there any curveballs in this afternoon's meetings? No. And so it was just allowed me to move easier through my whole day. So while we're recording, I'm not looking at my email. I'm not, worried about anything that could be happening right now. My team knew I wasn't going to be able to be in any meetings today. So I'm relaxed, but very focused on the outcomes that I want to produce during all of my scheduled engagements today.
Beautiful. Ambition, relaxed, serene, curious, patient, confident, courage, resolution. These are all moods that support trust. They give us an orientation, like I'm just listening to you, that allows even for the possibility of trust to show up. Given your openness with the sight on the outcome, there are actions available for you that aren't available when you're in a mood that blocks trust. So what are those?
I could think of one would be frustration.
Totally.
Righteous anger, which I think sometimes people think can be effective. Sadness, or general agitation and upset, where
two totally different things.
Of like that folks can walk around and they've been thwarted 2 or 3 things that have happened in their day, and man, they just bring that full force in the next. In fact, there was an example. There was another advisor who I am helping with some of their clients. We're kind of brought in as a consultant, and as we're in the meeting, the other advisor was a couple of minutes late. And as soon as they were let into the online meeting, you heard, I was like, well, the other person is not here yet, but their mood just arrived. And you could notice everybody else notice it. except the person that brought the mood, because I think they may have thought that we were all in that mood.
Mm-hmm. So what we don't see is our moods color our interpretations, or something we've talked about before on the podcast, our assessments, right? So his sigh, I mean, who knows what the mood is? What mood did you pick up on with him?
Oh, just instantly I'm like, they're late, so they're frustrated about something.
Mm-hmm.
But that was not the mood I wanted in that client meeting that I've been brought in to lead this particular client meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just didn't say anything to the mood. We just continued on the topic that we were on, and then I handled it offline with the other advisor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what we don't see is how much our moods can impact an environment. Right?
Mm,
So like you had to like power through it, probably almost cut him out kind of, right? Like
yes.
somewhat ignore him or just kind of cut him out of your awareness just to be able to power through. So, it was that the case at all, would you say?
Oh, well, yes. And I think that because there were three other people on the call that were in a great mood.
Mm,
And I think everybody kind of heard that. And then we just let it go.
mm,
And nobody said anything about it, like a slight withhold, but maybe for productive reasons. But there's something you just said that I've never occurred to me before when you think about how we can affect, I think you said an environment,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
is that without enormous awareness about cultivating moods that are productive, I never know what the mood was in a room before I showed up.
Yeah. It's the first thing I do.
This person doesn't know.
Right. If I have any conscious awareness, if I'm not in an unproductive mood that's undermining trust and performance, right? It's the first thing I do is I look to pick up on the mood in a situation. Because the mood determines what can be said. So if we build trust through conversations and the mood is one of impatience, you're not going to have the conversation you need to have that you're not going to get very much depth, right? So if I'm speaking into you being completely impatient, like, this process is moving too slowly, come on, move on, you're wasting my time, I'm going to give you so little information, and it might not even be the right information, but your mood completely impacts what I can say. So when I walk into a situation, I want to know what the prevalent moods are in the room, because I know that that's determining what I can say. And maybe before I deliver my message, I want to do something to adjust to impact the prevalent mood.
Yes. Well, and the funny thing about moods, especially when you're not in the same one with them. So when I handled it offline with this advisor after the meeting, it was just a check-in like, hey, how's your day going? Are you okay? Oh, it's just been such a day.
Mm.
So I go, all right, well, talk to you later. Because even in that mood didn't even give them what they needed. They couldn't hear the real concern of my question of like, I was an offer of help.
Mm.
There may have been 15 things on their plate today that I could have helped with 3 of them, but there wasn't even enough mood for them to realize that maybe they were throwing a lifeline.
Yeah. What I find is a lot of us think that we're kind of just at the effect of our moods, our own moods, or, they're the things that kind of like happen to us. They're not something we can cultivate, right? Or we're at the effect of other people's moods, which we are, but we often don't see that we also can develop our skill to orchestrate different moods with people. So part of, how do you even begin that process is increasing our awareness and specificity about the moods we're in.
Mm.
So if I'm in a mood of arrogance, for example, I know this better than you do, I know this better than other people, that's going to impact how other people are able to connect with me. But I want to realize, ooh, I'm in a superior or arrogant mood. that's creating distance between me and the people I'm wanting to impact here. Or if I'm in a mood of fear, I'm afraid that something that's really important to me is going to be lost. I serve on a board in which this organization has made some pretty big changes. And one group of constituents that are kind of like the customer, it's in an education space, but they're more the customer. They are just in arms about the changes, and they can't hear anything that the director is telling them. They can't hear the specificity of the changes or how it's going to be better for them, because they're in so much fear that they're going to lose what they love about the product, that there is no conversation to rebuild trust. But if they could see, oh my gosh, I'm in fear. What's underneath that fear is that I want to safeguard why I chose to get my education here, right? And if they could enter that conversation with that in mind, rather than not even being aware that fear is there, like they think they're angry. But I can, as the person that's going to be kind of facilitating some conversations, because I've been practiced at really picking up on moods, I can see, they have fear. They're afraid of the uncertainty of the future here, right? Which allows me to better build a trusting relationship, because I can ask them, what's really important to you that you're afraid will be lost with this change? And they can go right there and we can start to have a building conversation.
With that, let's just take a short pause for an important message from the Granger Network.
Hi there, I'm Lindsay, and I work at the Granger Network. So many people think of the human parts of us, our moods and feelings and personalities, as something to be handled, controlled, set aside in the name of results. But we believe the very opposite is true. Those messy human parts of us, they don't knock us off the path to performance. They are the path. This is what we dedicate our lives to, putting high-performing leaders on the path to truly game-changing leadership by mastering what makes us human. One of the ways we do that is through one-on-one coaching. In the uncertainty of the coronavirus pandemic, this has been a huge support for our clients. If you're a leader looking to navigate that uncertainty, reach out to us on our website, grangerNetwork.com, and we'll explore possibilities with you. If coaching isn't your thing, we've got tons of free content on our website as well. So head to grangerNetwork.com and let's continue the conversation.
And with that, let's jump back to our episode. Well, one thing I realized that we do at Sound Financial Group is that when we start a meeting with spouses, if we notice the mood is off, often we can't kind of see a way to shift it, and especially things like major deadlines on an executive or business owner that could have them distracted, or sickness. Somebody's just not feeling well, but they come on out of their commitment to the time that they've scheduled with us, which we hold a high standard around. We've even had snow days that have occurred for our clients. And it's like the mood is not going to be there today to look 20 years out.
Right. There's too much stress.
There just could be stress or unfamiliar situation, or maybe I'm missing out on something exciting with my children,
or overwhelm.
Those kinds of things. What we found is that when there is one of those moments or a mood where we can't bring up a certain topic or we can't cover what we planned on covering today, that it makes a lot of sense to abbreviate the meeting. They're almost always thankful they got some time back, we're rescheduled, and they show up in a different way the next time.
Oh my gosh, you just reminded me. We had a performance review this year. I had a performance review with one of my team members at the end of the year. And my team member showed up in a mood of distrust. And it wasn't about me, it was about performance reviews. And it was so thick. It was like already defensive and frustrated and resigned and distrustful because of his past history, right, of performance reviews, that I refused to give it. Like I just said, you don't get one. You don't get this gem. I am so ready to give you this gem. And since then, actually, in speaking with him, we saw that just the word performance review was such a trigger, that we're now calling them alignment sessions because that's what they really are for us. But it was so funny. I refused to give it to him because I could just feel like I was getting frustrated by, the mood that showed up, which meant, and I don't even mean to say it was on him. Where I looked was I'm frustrated. So I'm not going to do a good job here. And that's just going to further reinforce that these are a waste of time.
Yes.
And so, just to bring it back to trust is, this whole season, we keep looking at how can I, on my end, increase the trust around me, is that I want to begin to get really good at noticing the mood that I'm in and how that's coloring my world, how that's coloring what's possible in my relationships. And if I can start to bring awareness, I can begin to even ask, what's underneath that? What happened? Or what do I care about that is animating this mood? And then I can start to begin to cultivate moods that support trust. So, a mood of acceptance or curiosity or patience or admiration, gratitude, bravery, all of these moods I can start to cultivate. How do you cultivate? Well, you begin to revise your interpretations. So I could be in a mood of frustration that a good friend of mine never seems to initiate actions for us to do. Never calls me and invites me out to dinner or invites me to go to the movies, right? So I could be in that mood, or I could start to cultivate, I'm so grateful that whenever I call, my friend says yes, and they always pick up the phone, right? And all of a sudden, that narrative that I've shifted starts to shift my mood because they kind of go together, narratives and moods. I can begin to even the idea of fake it till you make it actually works. I can begin to cultivate a mood of patience, a mood of curiosity. And the more I practice that mood, the more it becomes a default.
And I think the greater ability to move other people into a productive mood, and not move them in a way like to push or force, but rather drawing them into, I'll never forget, I was on the phone with somebody and he's like, well, this happened and that happened and this gets busy and sorry I was a few minutes late, but I'm sure your world is super hectic like this too. I said, no, it's not. My world's pretty controlled. That stuff doesn't happen to me. And it was a little bit of a rough impact.
Yeah,
meaning
I was going to say,
it was
that
a little bit
doesn't
of
open my arms to you.
But he was like, really? And I started telling him a little bit about mission control and the work that we've done with the Granger Network in my organization, and how being more aware of the orbiting commitments all around us. And the guy brought it up again a year later. He said, it was a little surprising to me that you said no, but you were in this very, you weren't talking down to me. You were just centered in your mood. And my frenetic mood wasn't going to get you. And even that, now that one, I didn't mean to cultivate a new mood. I actually was trying to intentionally perturb him a little bit to see the mood he was in, that everybody's world is not like that. He was living like every other busy professional lived in the hectic world he was in.
Like the interruption of the way it is.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's the other piece is I kind of started by being willing to back off of moods when they weren't productive, and now have been able to move a little more into being able to cultivate a mood, not just in me, but in others. And where we can't, then we just don't handle the consequential things that can't be handled in the mood the person's in at that time.
Yeah, that's really good. Another tip that I've noticed as you were speaking, what do I do also to shift moods with others is I get curious about their mood. So I was on a coaching call once and my client was angry. And I asked him about that. I said, John, it seems like you're angry. He goes, yeah, I am a little angry. So I said, oh, are you, it almost seems like you're angry with me. He goes, yeah, I am angry with you. Oh, well, let's look at that. And it turns out we had done part of our coaching. We often do a 3-way alignment call with the supervisor. And he had actually thought the supervisor and I had been like plotting against him. and it was the first time I had ever even met the supervisor on the call. So, we got to clarify a number of things. And then, I told him how I prepared for the call and how I listened to the call and what I thought it was a brilliant call. Actually, I thought he and the supervisor were really great. But it was so good because as we started to be able to talk about it, and I was just open to his mood, I was like curious about his mood. I didn't go right into defensive-ness. It elevated the trust between us. He's like, man, and not only that, he was really generous. And he says, I see how, I have a lot of ungrounded interpretations that can put me in a bad mood for weeks. And I got to check those out a lot quicker.
Yes.
I was in a facilitation the other day and I had said, here are the ground rules, be on time, don't use your devices during the session and limit side conversations. And it got somebody so angry. And I was really interested. I was like, okay, I understand the words. He says, you don't understand our hectic schedules, right? I said, wow, I understand the words you're saying. But what I'm not totally understanding is the force with which you're saying them. Can you tell me a little bit about how strongly you're saying that, given you and I only met 2 hours ago? And it was like this whole thing opened up about the culture and the, inability to say no to things and how everything was an important priority and how so much was coming at them. It had nothing to do with me. Right? But even asking about it was completely disarming because I was genuinely curious about how could that make you so angry?
And that right there is I would imagine became like a linchpin that pulled loose that allowed people at all different levels inside that organization become aware of something that they had only felt a little bit in the background, and actually gave you and them access to work on it. That's why some of the largest organizations in this country, both profit and nonprofit, transact with the Granger Network right there. That is the magic that occurs in those sessions. So
thanks for that, Paul.
Well, I mean, it really is. I mean, I love it when you give those little bits of insight, and I love that we have the listeners we have and we get this feedback, but it's when you have somebody with Kari's discipline and skill in front of a room that's able to make something like that suss out. That's not like on the agenda. That's just part of your virtuoso. And having been in rooms where you've done that is just amazing. So I don't want to overgloss. As much as I want you guys to text these episodes to other people, have those coffee conversations, have the lunches, and send some of these episodes that you think resonate to some of the highest echelons of the organization that you're in, saying, I think maybe we should connect with these people. But maybe this is a great time for us to land this episode because I've got a list of the practical for people to use this week that is nearly exhaustive now. But starting off with you mentioned faking it till you make it, not for the sake of faking it. It's just practicing.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that distinction, Paul. Practicing till you make it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they don't call it faking it till you make it at bat as a baseball player. Mm-hmm. You're just swinging the bat till you figure out how to time it with the ball. Same thing with mood. Get curious about the moods that are contributing to whatever the environment is that you're in. Mm-hmm. And you can ask into it. And what a great way to ask what's going on for somebody is just get curious about their mood. And then it's not an attack. Creating acceptance for a negative mood. Now that may be able to allow you to get a new mood to emerge, or in some cases, like we sometimes do with our clients, is maybe this is not the day to do this conversation. Maybe we need to modify the agenda slightly. And then it's going to allow you to get related what matters most in the other people, which that right there can shift somebody's mood. Just them understanding that you're there for some of the things that are most important to them, not just you. So with that, Kari, thank you again for this one. Once again, big encouragement for everybody out there. Text this episode to someone. Have a conversation with someone else about this episode and watch what can shift and change in those moods and how that can create a better platform for trust in your work and personal relationships. And we hope, as always, that this has been a contribution to your leadership impact. Thank you for tuning into Leadership Impact, the podcast for modern executives who are reinventing leadership within their organizations. Subscribe now at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.